Hey YouTube, welcome to my new Autobomber build showcase. This is an Autobomber with Apocalypse using the Shaman Ascendancy. The build focuses around Apocalypse and as many explosions as possible. Currently I have two sources of explode. One is Trample Toe and the other is Explosive Transmutation. The two sources of explode provide a nice clear, as Apocalypse alone really struggles in clear as the projectiles fall down far too slow. And as you can see, the explodes look pretty cool. Really like the feel of how the screen kind of just pops as you are clearing. That's one of my favorite parts of Path of Exile 1 is just having a really big explosion build. And I'm glad that they brought that to Path of Exile 2. And you can see here the single target damage. It's not the best, but it's enough, I believe. It brings down the Citadel boss pretty quickly. If we can get to the next phase. And here you can see the rest of the single target damage. There is the Apocalypse, and there he goes. We also have a Arbiter of Ash, so you can see the single target on the final boss here. As well as you can see some of the struggles of the build. So single target is good if the boss is staying still. But if you have a boss that moves around a lot, it's basically 0 DPS. As you can see here in the second phase, he just moves around way too much, and I basically do no damage. So that's one of the reasons why I'm using Entangle, just for the slowing debuff. Ash ends up moving around for another 20 seconds or so, so let's just skip this and head into the build. So let's get into the build. So the core of the build rotates around two different things. One is this ascendancy point, Apocalypse, and the other is explosions. So for Apocalypse, this skill is a glory skill that after you get 100 glory, you will trigger 3 different skills for 12 seconds. And these skills are all different types of elements. And that lets you use Trinity, which is this aura skill, and Rising Tempest. These are really good damage boosts for more. So that's very cool. And the second core part of the build is explosions. So we get explosions through Explosive Transmutation and Trample Toe. Combining these two together help make Apocalypse a really good clear skill. So the way that the build works is you will use Entangle to build up glory. And once you have enough glory, you can use Apocalypse. And it will kill and spawn remnants. I'm using mana remnants as well as remnants of Kalgur. And once you pick up the remnants, they will explode and proc more explosions from trample toe as well as just off them themselves. So it makes a pretty nice feeling build because you don't need to really think. You can just walk around, cast Entangle once in a while. And watch things explode. It's pretty satisfying. So the reason why we use Entangle instead of other skills is for two reasons. One is you can use Entangle once and it'll continue to hit. So if you see here, I just use it once and it'll just keep hitting and I have enough for Apocalypse. The second reason is it has a slowing debuff, which helps keeps mobs that move around a lot in one place. So for example, exiles move around a lot and they're really annoying. They're tanky, they heal, and they roll all over the place. Entangle helps keep them a little bit slower so you can keep doing damage. Otherwise, the Apocalypse skills just don't hit and it feels really bad. You can alternatively use Ball Lightning or any other skill that hits a lot because the damage does not matter. It's just how many times it hits, I believe, to build up the glory. So anything that hits fast and a lot is the best skill to use. So for offenses, we're scaling damage through gem levels. We have 6 on our wand and 3 on our amulet. So that helps us scale both explosive transmutation and apocalypse. Also for our increased damages, we are using Wrathpith Globe. In total, this gives me a little bit over 200 increased damage because I have about 4,000 life. I do have a few other sources of increased damage, but the majority of it is from the Wrathpith. Do note that you want one that has the removed life cost because Apocalypse uses the cost every single time it triggers a skill. So if you have the life cost on this, it becomes a very difficult skill to use just because you don't have enough life recovery. And the final scaler that we have is through more increases. So Trinity gives us more elemental damage per 30 affinity. And since Apocalypse and Explosive Transmutation both do multiple types of damage, we're able to keep the stacks of Trinity up at least over 200. The maximum is 300, but on average we have about 200 just because the fire skill doesn't hit as often as the other cold and lightning skills. The final damage scaler is crit. So we get a lot of crit damage and crit chance from our tree. Most of the tree is just getting crit damage. Secondly, the shield also gives increased crit chance per life, which is also nice. Through that, we get about 40 to 50% crit on Apocalypse, depending on the skill. And that covers the offenses. As for the defenses, it's mainly just two different things. One is a large life pool, and secondly is a somewhat large mana pool. And we're just covering that through mind over matter. You can get more armor into the build, but at the current defense level, I don't think any more defense is really required. For the most part, I can stand in the middle of packs for a few seconds before it becomes an issue. So to go over the gear, we have this dueling wand. For this build, you can use any wand base type. Most builds use the Spellslinger base, but for this build, since it is an Autobomber, you won't be casting a lot of spells, so any base is fine. The important things here are the gem levels, the spell damage, and as much damage as extra as possible. On this base here, I have extra as cold. I think for this one, the best would be extra as fire, as it does help Trinity out a little bit, but it doesn't affect it too badly. The main things is just more spell damage. For the rune sockets themselves, I'm using +1 to all skills, as well as remnants can be collected 50% further away. This just helps with the clear. This wand I bought for about 30 divines, so this is one of the more expensive items in the build. On the other end of the spectrum, this helmet was 1x. It's strictly just for life, strength, and a little bit of crit chance. Next is the amulet. This is the other expensive piece of the build. I bought this for 50 divines. You want one that has Trinity on it. The level does not matter too much, but ideally you would want a level 19 Trinity so that you can socket in +1 mastery and it will become level 20. At level 20, you get 6% more elemental damage. Alternatively, you can buy Uhtred's support gem, the lineage support, and that can bump it up anywhere from 2 to 3 levels. So that should get you to level 20 on that as well. On this, I have spell skills. So +4 spell skills, a little bit of life, and some mana. Next is the Wrathpith Globe. This, I believe I bought for under 50x. As I said before, just make sure that you don't have skills cost 6% of life. Any other combination is generally okay, but I think this is the second best combination. If you can get increased damage for mana, per 100 mana, that would be very good as well, but that is very expensive. On the rings, it's just life, strength, and resistances. Most of my resistances come from here. For the body, just life, strength, and 50 spirit. You want 50 spirit on here if you want to run blasphemy. If you're okay with self-casting it, you don't need the spirit on the chest. I believe I bought this for about 1 divine. And the rings too, I believe they were about 1 to 5 divine each. The mitts is the same as the other gear pieces, life, strength, resistances. Then we have Trample Toe. This one just gives you overkill damage. This is the second source of explode. Make sure that you upgrade it to the Rune Mastered version because it does provide the implicit of 5% increase in movement speed. Lastly is the Mage Blood. So originally I wanted to use Comb's Heart and Defiance of Destiny. That was really good for defense wise, but it was terrible with clear. So that's why I had the Bismuth flask on there, just to cap off res, because I was using a lot of uniques. But without the Mage Blood, you can still cap off your resistances. If you just get a little bit better chest helmet, you should be able to cap it off. Otherwise, the Mage Blood is just for speed and a little bit of crit. Also the charms, I'm just using anti-freeze, anti-poison, and anti-ignite. So to go over the tree, we start off with the ascendancy. So the core of the build is Apocalypse. So the first ascendancy we get Turning of the Seasons, then we get Apocalypse, and then afterwards I went for Wisdom of the Magi for the bonded mods, and Reactive Growth. Now if you want more damage, you can go for the Rage nodes, but you will have to balance the Rage costs for Apocalypse because every trigger will cost Rage. Also, if you want more defenses, you can go Avatar Evolution instead of the bonded mods. But I think having more life is probably better. So the main focus of the tree is around skill effect duration, where I'm getting here and here. Crit, where I'm getting all over the tree. And a little bit of remnant support here and here. Other than that, it's just getting as much strength as possible in the nodes and jewel sockets. It's a pretty straightforward tree. I think a lot of builds basically look the same like this. One thing to note though is I am anointing this for damage recoup as mana, just to pair it with Mind Over Mana. If you don't have any sort of mana recoup, it does feel kind of bad if you're taking a lot of burst damage and you can't use any skills. So this combined with this helps you sustain mana, and this node helps you sustain life. And I have a little bit of recoup on some of my jewels, which also helps. But in general, this is the big one that keeps my life up while mapping. So for skills, on Apocalypse, we're using Verana Siege, Prolonged Duration, Fluke, Considered Casting, and Rising Tempest. As for Trinity, there are 2 breakpoints that you can reach for more damage. The first one is at level 20, and the next one is at 23. So try to get them over 20 or 23. I'm currently using Cold Mastery and Uhtred's Omen to get 3 levels here, and that gets me to 21. Unfortunately, I bought a base that only had level 18. If it was level 20, I would be able to get to the 28 mark. But yeah, it's 1% more damage. For Entangle, I am using Slow Potency, Branching Fissures, Efficiency, Rapid Casting, and Zenith. And then into our Spirit skills, we're using 4 Spirit skills. Remnants of Kalgur, Mana Remnants. These use the same supports, remnant potency, as well as harmonic remnants. And then for explosive transmutation, we use magnified area, zenith, spell cascade, arbiter's ignition, and rising tempest. Then blasphemy, elemental weakness, magnified area, and fire mastery. But that's the build. Thanks for watching this far. Here is a 200% Deli Map. I think it went pretty well. The tankiness as well as the damage, the clear, the build feels pretty good, as you can see here. Especially with high density mobs. It feels really cool to just explode a pack of monsters across the screen. Now you can do more damage if you self-cast elemental weakness, but I am very lazy. If possible, I wouldn't want to press any buttons, but unfortunately in Path of Exile 2, it's very rare to have a 0 button build. So I'm quite happy that I have a 3 button per minute build at the very minimum. And yeah, the explosions look really cool. But thank you so much for watching up into this part of the video. If you're still here with me, please subscribe. It would help out. Be cool. But yeah, just come out, watch my videos, just vibe. As you can see, I'm not really into juicing really hard content or going super fast. Just making things look cool is what I like to do, and press as little buttons as possible. But I will let you watch the rest of the video if you are interested. The clip goes into the end of the boss fight. Alright, thank you guys for watching. Have a good day.